You're crossing my boundaries! I'm Kylie, and I'm Courageous Beauty in quarantine. Courageous Beauty is a girls group for conversations about self-worth and healthy relationships. And this channel is where we answer questions that we've gotten from our Curious Cat account or from online or from our girls groups, which are currently happening online right now. If you have anonymous questions, you can go to curiouscat.me/courageousbeauty. I am going to be talking about boundaries today. I got a very direct question asking what to do when somebody you know and love says, "You're crossing my boundaries!" Or they say something of the like, just like you're disrespecting me and just screaming and yelling at you for crossing boundaries. What does that even mean? Totally get it. This is a very difficult thing. So before I even get into answering that specific question, I think it's important that we lay a foundation of what I mean when I'm talking about boundaries. Boundaries are how we define for ourselves and for others what belongs to us, what is within our responsibilities, what we have control over, and also how we define what belongs to others. This is a growing journey that lasts our entire lives. We are always trying to understand what really belongs to us and what actually is something that belongs to someone else. Now, here's a couple examples of things that do absolutely belong within your boundaries, things that are within your control. Your choices and behaviors, your thoughts, how you think, your opinions, your feelings, and what you decide to do about those feelings, your beliefs, your possessions, things you actually own, your relationships, who you choose to give love to. A couple more examples would be things like your time, your talents, your treasure, and your energy, and your attention, just things that you ultimately have to make the decision of what you're going to do with them. And really, no one else can decide how we're going to do these things, and they can't make decisions for us in these areas. We have to make up our own minds about it. We alone control them. And there's other examples that aren't so clear cut as that, especially as it comes to like, yeah, I get to decide who I want to have a relationship with, but I can't control how that other person treats me in that relationship. All I can control is how I choose to think, how I choose to act, how I choose to respond, and that. So that's where it can get a little tricky. And the hard thing is that we live in a world that is messy and broken and has tons of boundary issues. There are some people who don't know how to say no, and they end up being controlled by others, or they're guilted and manipulated by others. They also feel stuck in their life, their choices, and their relationships. There are people who won't hear no from other people, and they will aggressively overstep others' boundaries or seek for ways to manipulate and control the other person. Then there's people who won't be responsive to someone's genuine requests for love and help. They will set boundaries that aren't needed and end up hurting people unnecessarily. And then there's people who won't receive the care and love that they need and other people are offering to them. So obviously there's a lot of things we have to figure out, and it's not always clear cut, especially when there's combinations of those kinds of people. So here's what we want to figure out. When somebody attempts to control something that is within our own boundaries, for example, let's say somebody is trying to make us give them something, whether that be more time to spend with them or more of our attention, maybe even something like money, and it's something that we don't really want to give them. What happens? Oftentimes, the feeling that is incited is anger. We feel angry when someone is crossing or pushing our boundaries, and this is a good thing. Anger often is a sign that our boundaries are being pushed or crossed, and we should pay attention to that. But what makes it confusing is that anger can be a telltale of other things also. Sometimes we just feel angry because the person didn't respond the way we wanted, or we feel disappointed because we didn't get something that we wanted. And that isn't necessarily the same thing as crossing boundaries, but it certainly can still make us upset. So our goal is to pay attention to where that anger came from. Are we feeling angry because we just didn't get what we wanted and we can't control what that other person chooses to give us? Or are we feeling angry because somebody else is trying to manipulate something that we are responsible to make the decision for? If that's the case, that is when we can start talking about how do we begin to set these boundaries. Now, the job is we have to learn how to communicate what we need and what we're feeling in a productive way. What ends up happening is as we're just starting to learn about boundaries and learn that, oh, I've been manipulated and I've been controlled, the reaction it creates is anger, and oftentimes the reaction is messy. But the goal is that we don't stay there in the reaction stage. We are just beginning to learn that anger is a sign that our boundaries have been crossed, that we've been manipulated or controlled. It's good. We need to respond to that. We need to do something about that. I'll get to that in a second. But we certainly don't want to stay in that reactionary stage. We want to get to a place where we can be proactive in the setting of our boundaries so that we don't feel controlled or manipulated by the other person, and we're able to give freely because we want to, not that we feel compelled to. So now, getting into how do we actually go about setting our boundaries? I'll tell you first what setting boundaries does not look like. Setting boundaries does not look like screaming at the other person to respect you or to not cross your boundaries. It really looks like acknowledging for yourself that you have power to make your own choices separate from someone else's attempts to control or manipulate you. Do you understand that? It's not you controlling the other person. You are coming to an understanding of what you have control over. And then recognizing that you are not helpless to that person. Then you get to a place where you can communicate what you need and want from that person while giving them the freedom to respond and react however they want or need, even if it's wrong. Your job is to control yourself so you can communicate what you need, how you feel, but not to control or manipulate the other person. You don't want to do to them what they have done to you. So I know there's a whole lot more in this conversation about how you actually going about setting those boundaries, but this is the preliminary understanding of what boundaries are supposed to be. When we're communicating our boundaries, we're not supposed to just throw this out as a blank statement. You're crossing my boundaries. That doesn't help anyone. If the boundaries are really being crossed, what you have to figure out is what is causing me to feel angry that this person is talking this way, treating me this way. Are they crossing my boundaries? And if so, what do I have control over? Do they really have control over this area of my life? Yes, will they be angry if I don't comply? Maybe. But I can choose not to allow myself to be controlled by this. And that's really what a proactive boundary setting person looks like. It takes a bit to get there, and it's a really messy process as you're learning this. So be patient with yourself and be patient with others. Seek to communicate what you're going through, what you're feeling, and what you need in the moment as best you can. And learn as much as you can about what is within your boundaries and what you can free others to do for themselves. It goes a long way in helping you begin this journey of setting and maintaining those boundaries in a healthy way. I hope you guys found that helpful. I love talking about boundaries and relationships and self-worth. So if you guys have any questions about topics like that, you can go to curiouscat.me/courageousbeauty. Submit your anonymous questions there, and I will answer them as quickly as I can, either here or on our Instagram account through the live videos. So I hope you enjoy it. If you did enjoy it, I would appreciate a like on that video. Subscribe to our channel and you'll be able to see other views. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a fantastic day.